Hey people of VC, it's Andy, a Cloudy, a Milder, going to do my top 10 rock and metal albums of 1985. Don't do top 10 videos regularly, but I thought I would give this a bash. Usual caveats go along with these. This is my top 10. I'm not trying to say this is the definitive top 10 at all, and it is the top 10 albums of 85 that I own. I've got a pool of about, I think it's about 65 to choose from. So if you don't see some of your favorites in here, either I don't consider them a top 10 or I don't have them. So happy if you want to disagree with me, but give me your opinion in the comments below, and maybe suggest some albums you think I've missed, and I can let you know whether I've got them and they didn't make the top 10, or whether I've not heard them, or I just don't own them in any physical format to show on this video. So why 1985? Well, 85 was the year that I got indoctrinated into the heavy metal family. So I thought it was a good place to start. If you enjoy this video and you want to maybe see me do some more of these, then suggest another year in the comments below, and I'll maybe give that a bash too. So I'm going to try and keep this short. I'm going to try and keep this in top 10 in 10 minutes if I can. But let's dive straight in. So number 10, and straight off, I don't suppose this will be in many people's top 10, but there are some in here that are purely based on nostalgia, and this is one of them. Magnum, on a Storyteller's Night. Magnum, obviously more of a melodic rock, bit progressive band. I was going to say this is from 1985, but you know that because this is a 1985 top 10. So yes, in at number 10, Magnum, on a Storyteller's Night. Number 9, it's a record that's grown on me. Not my favourite by this band by any means, but I think it deserves to be in the top 10. So at number 9, we have Accept and Metal Hearts. This is their follow-up to Balls to the Wall. It's a good album. Metal Heart, obviously, the title track. Screaming for a Love Bite, I quite like that. That's growing me a lot. Midnight Mover, very solid album from Accept, but probably not even in my top 3 or 4 Accept albums. Number 8, Savatage and the Dungeons Are Calling. I got this, I think, on VCLT. I think it was Bev sent me it, which was a very, very nice surprise. It's on Music Foundations, number 42, the debut album from Savatage. Only 6 tracks. It's quite short, but certainly a taste of things to come. Again, not my favorite Savatage album, but an excellent record from 1985. Number 7, Chateau, Highly Strung. This is on Ebony Records. Chateau are a new wave of British heavy metal band, and if you've not heard them, you've missed a treat. This is actually their 3rd album, and it's absolutely killer, pretty much from start to finish. From the title track, Highly Strung, Turn It On, Hot Touch at Midnight, First Strike, great song. Midnight Star, One Too Many. It's just a really, really solid new wave of British heavy metal album from a band that isn't necessarily that well known, but is certainly a bit of a hidden gem in the 80s heavy metal bracket. Number 6, a fairly recent Grail acquisition, Exodus Bonded by Blood, their debut album. Again on Music Foundations, number 44. There's a few Music Foundations in this list, as you can imagine. I just love the raw aggression. I found in this list it was quite hard. So we're in the middle section now, and a lot of these are interchangeable. And I've got a few thrash, and I've got a few straight up heavy metal. And I find it difficult to say one album is better than the other because the two different styles of music, and I've got to be in the right mood to listen to either of them. So one day one of these might be better, one day one of the heavy metal albums may be better. So it's a little touch and go, but as I say, take this list with a pinch of salt. I think that I've got 10 great albums here, and I'm happy with this order, at least anyway. So yeah, Exodus, Bonded by Blood. Number 5, Armored Saint, Delirious Nomad. Absolutely superb album by Armored Saint. And this is Paul Sandoval's last album. I think he even left while they were recording this album. Always thought it strange that the album was called Delirious Nomad, and there's a song Nervous Man that where Delirious Nomad is mentioned, but the song I always thought was called Delirious Nomad, but no, it's Nervous Man. But The Laugh, Conqueror, Aftermath, the final track released, absolutely solid slab of metal from John Bush. And the voice. Number 4, Megadeth, Killing Is My Business and Business Is Good. Another Music for Nations pressing. Very raw, but I think a fantastic debut album. Certainly all that aggression that Dave Mustaine was feeling after being kicked out of Metallica. And I love the dedication he gives them. Final dedication and thanks to is Metallica for proving true blood of metal runs through our brains. The true blood of metal runs through our veins. The only song I don't really like on this is These Boots. Was never, and I've never been a fan of Megadeth's cover versions, to be brutally honest. But a solid debut release, 85, and my number 4. Number 3 now is the newest album for me in this list. It's obviously a band that's been going around for a while, and the band I was incredibly late to the party to, and I can't really give a rational explanation as to why I was so late to the party. But it's Overkill, or the debut album from Overkill. This is a double CD, but it's Feel the Fire in particular that we're talking about here. Yeah, so I was late to the party with them, but I've been catching up fast, and I think for Feel the Fire to be at number 3 in my 1985 and it to be so new, and so I'm not necessarily as familiar with the other albums you've seen so far, just goes to show what a fine album I believe it to be. Yeah, Raise the Dead, Rotten to the Core, absolutely love that song. Hammerhead, Feel the Fire, of course. Overkill, it's solid slab of thrash and metal, and deservedly I think to be quite high up in my rankings. Number 2, going away from thrash just for a second, and I couldn't help but have Halloween so high. This is obviously their debut album as well, Walls of Jericho. Not my favorite Halloween album either, but there's not much to choose between this and Keepers Part 2 and Keepers Part 1, to be perfectly honest with you. The Kai Hansen era of Halloween will always be my favorite era, and everything else just falls short. But Ride the Sky, Gorga, I love that song. A great rad. How Many Tears and Heavy Metal Is the Law. Where power metal began, shall we say? But yeah, fantastic. That's my number 2. And my number 1, without a shadow of a doubt, is Anthrax, Spreading the Disease. I didn't get this album until sometime in 1986, and it was my introduction to Anthrax, and then I went on to hear Among the Living as well. But this has always been my favourite as a result. Never had this album back in the day. It was only on tape. In fact, I don't think I've owned any of these albums as a physical copy. Back in 1985, I did have a few of them on tape, and many of them I've come to love over the decades since then. But this album to me is a perfect 10. AIR, Lone Justice, Madhouse, SSC Standoff 4, The Enemy, Aftershock, Armed and Dangerous, Medusa, and Gung Ho is an absolutely, well, gung ho way to end an album. So that's my number one of 1985. As I say, that's my top 10. Always happy to discuss in the comments below the differences. If you think this is the worst top 10 you've ever seen, then feel free to let me know in the comments below. I'm quite happy to have a chat, but just tell me what yours are instead. And as I say, if you want to see another top 10 from a specific year, drop me a note in the comments below and I'll see what I can do. Thanks for watching. Cheers.